Lin was a young nurse, just over a year out of school, working at a city hospital in Ho Chi Minh City. She was quiet, gentle, and always devoted to her patients. Her days were filled with back-to-back shifts, from early morning to late at night, then the cycle would repeat again. But recently, during her night shifts, Lin started to feel that something wasn't right. That night, Lin was scheduled to be on duty alone in the internal medicine ward. The shift was originally supposed to be Hong's, but she had to take emergency leave, and Lin was called in as a replacement. She had just finished updating the medication log when she heard the soft, dragging sound of slippers shuffling down the hallway. Lin frowned and looked toward the door. She muttered to herself, "It's nearly 1 a.m. Who would still be walking around out there?" Finishing her sentence, she stood up, opened the duty room door, and shone her flashlight in the direction of the sound. The hallway was completely empty. Not a single soul. All the patient rooms, from the first to the last, had their doors firmly closed. Lin exhaled slowly, trying to calm herself. Probably just someone going to the restroom, she whispered. She turned to step back inside when, scrape, scrape, scrape. The sound of fabric being dragged along the floor echoed behind her, sending chills down her spine. She slowly turned around. Nothing. Suddenly, the hallway lights flickered. One section lit up at the far end, then went dark. Lin quickly aimed her flashlight toward it. Nothing there, but she could have sworn something had just passed by. Swallowing hard, she gripped the flashlight tighter. "It's fine. I'm just imagining things. That's all." As she stepped back into the duty room, Lin froze. A shadow had just flickered past the window, so fast that she only caught a glimpse of a white fabric trailing behind. She took a step back, heart pounding. Then her walkie-talkie crackled to life, followed by a whispering voice. Don't stay." The voice was faint, like it came from the bottom of a well. Lin grabbed the device and pressed the call button for the security office. "Hello? Uncle Tam, the walkie is acting weird. Can you check it for me?" No reply. She tried again. This time, a whisper, barely audible, brushed her ear like wind. "Lin, go home. Don't stay for this shift." Lin froze. She dropped the walkie-talkie, backing away slowly, eyes fixed on the door to the emergency room on her left, the one that had been locked since noon. After the last patient was transferred, that door was slowly creaking open. Lin stepped back again, her spine icy cold. She swallowed hard, eyes glued to the partially open door. The flashlight in her trembling hand lit up the gap. It was pitch black inside, but she could see it clearly. Something was standing behind the door. A large, shadowy mass, unmoving, no clear shape, but she could feel it watching her, staring. Lin stammered as she slowly backed away. Sorry if someone's inside. I'm the nurse on duty. She couldn't finish her sentence. The shadow took one step forward. The door creaked open wider. Lin panicked. She turned and ran straight back to the duty room. Slamming the door shut, she locked it, then leaned against it, gasping for breath. Her heart felt like it was going to explode. She pulled out her phone, intending to call Hong or someone downstairs. But her signal was completely gone. No service, no data. Her hands trembling, Lin opened her duty logbook, trying to distract herself with work. But as she flipped to today's page, a fine line of writing appeared at the top. Lin's final night shift. She froze, eyes wide. She hadn't written that. Flipping back, she found her own notes from the 14th and 15th. The next page? Blank. The following? That same eerie handwriting, rough, shaky, yet clear. The emergency room is open. She has chosen. A cold chill crept from her feet to her neck. Clutching the logbook, Lin backed away from the desk. She stared at the door. The duty room door, which she had locked, was now slowly moving. The lock was still in place, but the door was opening. Click. The doorknob twisted, then stopped. Bare feet slapped against the hospital floor. SHFF, SHFF. Each step closer. Then a voice whispered from the other side of the door. So close, so soft, like someone murmuring through the wood. It's your last shift. Lin, open the door. Dear, Lin stood frozen, staring at the gently shaking doorknob. She stepped back, one step at a time, afraid that even the smallest sound might cause the door to burst open. The voice behind the door spoke again, louder and clearer this time. "You're on night duty. You must take responsibility. Don't keep the patient waiting." The words hit her like ice. Something clutched the back of her neck. Without thinking, she lunged toward the desk, grabbed the emergency key, and fumbled to open the supply cabinet, looking for something to defend herself. Her hands landed on a pair of surgical scissors, not sharp, not heavy, but better than nothing. She crouched in the corner, gripping the scissors tightly, back pressed to the file cabinet, eyes locked on the door. From the narrow crack, she could hear every wheezing breath. "Come out, please, it hurts. I'm cold." Lin burst into tears. The fear crushed her like a weight on her chest. She'd never experienced anything like this. In previous shifts, the most she'd dealt with were flickering lights, fast footsteps, or beds moving on their own. But this time, someone, or something, was calling her by name. Suddenly, all the lights in the duty room flared, then went out completely. Lin screamed. Darkness swallowed everything. From the shadow near the duty bed, a figure slowly emerged. A woman in white, hair hanging down, stood with her back facing Lin. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there in the dark. Lin trembled, clutching the scissors so tightly her nails dug into her skin. The woman began to turn, not her whole body, just her head, spinning around. Once, twice, until her face was looking directly at Lin. She had no eyes. Her sockets were black, gaping voids. Blood dripped from her mouth onto her pristine white coat. Lin couldn't breathe. She couldn't scream, couldn't run. She just pressed herself against the wall, staring. Then the woman spoke. Her voice was soft, yet echoed inside Lin's mind. "That night, who left me to die cold in the emergency room? Wasn't it you?" Lin collapsed to the floor, hands over her ears, but the voice kept echoing, like a chant rising from underground. "Wasn't it you?" She cried out, her voice hoarse. "No, it wasn't me. I didn't do anything to you." Silence. A faint hallway light filtered through the cracked door. The woman's figure blurred, then faded into mist, but the cold remained. The air was thick, so heavy it felt like invisible hands pressing against Lin's chest. Suddenly, loud footsteps thundered down the hall. The door burst open. It was Ha, the morning shift nurse. She rushed in, pale and breathless, finding Lin curled on the floor, face white, hair soaked in sweat. "Lin? Oh my God, are you okay? You scared me. What happened last night?" Lin tried to stand, her legs shaking uncontrollably. She whispered, "Kai Ha." Someone came into the duty room." She called my name. Ha knelt beside her, her voice softening. "There was no one here. Lin, you were alone. Maybe you're just exhausted. Maybe lack of sleep made you imagine things. It wasn't a dream. I saw her. Her eyes were black. Blood from her mouth. She asked me why I let her die." Ha froze. Her eyes dropped. After a moment, she gently placed her hand on Lin's shoulder and said quietly, "Lin, when you first started working here, did anyone tell you the old story?" Lin shook her head. Ha sat down slowly, her voice low and heavy. "More than a year ago, there was an incident in the emergency room. A nurse came in for a late night shift. There was a storm that night. For some reason, no one checked on her until morning. When they did, they found her unconscious, cold, lifeless, on the emergency table. They said it was lack of oxygen, or hypothermia, but ever since she passed, strange things have been happening during the night shifts." Lin listened, every hair on her body standing. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. Ha continued gently, ... They say, she never really left. Still lingers here, especially whenever a new nurse takes their first night shift." Lin's mouth dropped open. She whispered, "What was her name?" Ha hesitated, looking Lin straight in the eyes. She slowly said, "Her name was Duyen." A cold chill shot down Lin's spine. That whisper from behind the door last night, it also said. "Lin, it's me, Duyen." That afternoon, Lin sat alone in the duty room. eyes fixed on a cup of ginger tea that had long gone cold. The atmosphere around the hospital felt different, quieter, colder, and filled with unease. After telling the story, Ha had warned her, "If you still want to keep working here, don't get too curious. Just stick to your duties. Lin, don't wander around at night, especially not down into the old basement." Lin didn't reply, but her heart was heavy with unanswered questions. Who was Duyan? Why did she die so silently in the middle of the night? And why was she calling her name? That night, Lin officially began her next night shift. Paired with an older doctor named Mr. Thuck. He was close to retirement, calm and quiet. Around 11 p.m., after making sure the wards were stable, he told her he'd be dropping some documents at the administrative office and asked her to monitor the security cameras. Alone in the dimly lit room, Lin leaned her chin on her palm, eyes scanning the various camera feeds across the hospital. Suddenly, she froze. Camera view. 4th floor hallway. The site of the emergency case 1 year ago, flickered briefly. A blurry image appeared. Someone in a white lab coat, long hair covering half their face, stood with their back to the camera, motionless. Lin gasped. She rubbed her eyes and looked again. The figure was still there. She tapped through other cameras. Everything else looked normal. Only that one image remained completely still, almost as if something pushed her. Lin shot up, grabbed her flashlight, and left the duty room. She tiptoed up to the 4th floor. The hallway stretched silent and still. The row of fluorescent lights above cast a sickly green hue, making her skin look pale. As she neared the spot captured by the camera, her heart pounded. No one was there. She swept her flashlight across the hallway. Everything stood still. Suddenly, the hallway lights flickered, the last room's door creaked open, and a breeze rushed through, whipping her hair backward. A voice called out, right behind her. "Lin." She spun around. Nothing. Then, from that room came the sound of shuffling, like someone dragging slippers slowly across the tiled floor. She stepped back, ready to flee, when the door suddenly slammed shut. And on the glass window of that door, a red handprint appeared. Blood smeared, as if someone had pressed a soaked palm against the glass from inside. Lin gasped, taking a shaky step backward. Then she clearly heard it, a whisper from inside. Trembling and tearful, "Why did you leave me?" She stepped back further, gripping her flashlight so tightly her hands went numb. She tried to stay calm, but her heartbeat pounded in her ears. That voice was unmistakably female. Raspy, soaked with tears, choked with pain. "Why did you leave me?" That wasn't a simple question. It felt like an accusation, like there was a past between them. One unresolved. Lin swallowed hard and pulled out her phone to call Dr. Thuck. But the signal was weak, no connection. She decided to head back down quietly, not wanting to draw more attention. She had barely taken a few steps when a white figure suddenly swept past just behind her. A frigid gust surged up her spine from the floor. Lin froze. She spun around, nothing but the greenish hallway light. Back at the duty room, she found Dr. Thuck had returned and was flipping through nurse files. Lin collapsed into her chair, breathless. Dr. Thuck looked up and asked, "Where did you go just now?" Lin answered honestly, "I saw something on the 4th floor. The camera showed a figure earlier, so I went to check." Dr. Thuck went silent for a moment, then quietly closed the file in front of him. Back when Duyen was still alive, she used to complain about that 4th floor too. Said she kept hearing crying at night. Once, she claimed to have seen a long-haired figure in a doctor's coat walking back and forth at the end of the hallway. But no one believed her. He paused, then continued, "She was the only one who ever saw it. After her suicide, the cameras on the 4th floor were replaced, but even then, there have been strange signal glitches. Occasionally, nurses still report seeing things, but the management strictly forbids us from talking about it." Lin shivered. She had seen it. It wasn't her imagination. That night, she returned to her rented room with her mind spinning. Before bed, she opened an old inbox on her phone and typed, "Duyen," into the search bar. To her surprise, an old voice recording appeared, sent over a year ago. Around the time Lin had left Saigon. The voice in the recording was unmistakably Du Yan's. "You left, and I don't blame you. But I'm scared. Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it isn't real. I'm afraid one day, it'll take me too. Like the others. If something happens to me, please don't come back. Lin, don't come back." Lin's hands trembled. She had never heard that message before, and had no idea why it was only showing up now. Outside, the night wind howled. Tree branches tapped against her window like fingernails scratching the glass. The voice recording echoed one final time, a chilling whisper. "Don't come back." The next morning, Lin walked into the hospital with dark circles under her eyes. The recording from the night before still echoed in her mind, like a clear warning from beyond the grave. She didn't tell anyone about the voice recording. She simply replayed it in silence, again and again, and saved it in a hidden folder. When Lin arrived at the duty room, she was surprised to see a new doctor speaking with the department head. He was a tall, slender man in his 30s, wearing glasses, with a calm and reserved gaze. The department head waved Lin over. "Lin, this is Dr. Kai. He just transferred from Hanoi. He'll be in charge of the inpatient cases on the 4th floor and will be working closely with you over the next few weeks." Dr. Kai looked at her and gave a slight nod. Lin nodded back, but for some reason, the moment their eyes met, a strange sense of familiarity crept over her. Not the kind that brought comfort, but the kind that chilled her to the bone. As if she had seen him somewhere before. That afternoon, while preparing an injection for an elderly patient, Lin accidentally dropped the syringe. As she bent down to pick it up, she heard a woman's whisper by her ear. "That man is not among the living." She shot up, heart racing, and scanned the room. Only the sleeping patient was there. Lin was unsettled the entire afternoon. Eventually, she decided to tell Dr. Thuck everything, from the voice recording to the white figure on the 4th floor, and even the strange feeling she had around Dr. Kai. Dr. Thuck listened in silence for a moment. Then he reached into a drawer and pulled out an old, yellowed file tied with a red thread. "Do you remember the case from 2 years ago? A female patient who died under mysterious circumstances in room 407. Her family never claimed the body, and no one handled the burial. We had to keep her in the morgue for over a week." Lin nodded. She vaguely recalled the case. Dr. Thuck opened the file and pointed to a copy of the patient's ID card. The name was Nguyen Ngoc Duyen. Lin froze. "That's impossible. That's Kai Duyen. But why? Why didn't she have any family?" Dr. Thuck shook his head. No one came forward. Her ID listed her hometown as Phan Thiet. But when we tried to verify, the local authorities said no such person existed. It was as if her name, age, everything was fake. Lin trembled, her voice cracking. "But I knew her. We went to school together. We rented the same apartment. We worked here together. How can no one verify who she was?" Dr. Thuck didn't respond. He simply pushed the file toward her. Tucked inside was a photo. An old, blurry image of Duyen standing in the hospital courtyard, next to a man. The man's face was scratched and unclear, but Lin recognized him instantly. It was Dr. Kai. Her heart raced. She gasped. "That can't be. That man, it's him." Dr. Thuck looked her in the eyes. His voice grave. "Yes, that's him. But the real Dr. Kai died in a car accident on the highway 2 years ago. The same day Duyen took her own life in room 407. Lin stood up, backing away, her hands gripping each other tightly. She no longer understood what was happening. But one thing was certain. The ghosts of 2 years ago had never left this place. That evening, Lin didn't go home. She stayed in the duty room and replayed the voice recording from the night before. Skipping to the very end, the female voice, faint like mist. "Don't trust the one in white. He's no longer who he used to be." Lin's heart trembled. She remembered clearly, last night, she had been on duty with none other than Dr. Kai. She turned on the computer and searched the hospital's employee database. The name Nguyen Minh Kai did exist. Listed address, Hai Ba Trung District, Hanoi. Years of experience, 6. But oddly, his profile photo was blurred out, as if corrupted. Lin tried clicking it, the file couldn't be opened. She made up her mind to go to the archives room, where the original hiring records were kept. The admin clerk was hesitant at first, but with her hospital badge, Lin was granted access just before sunset. Digging through a thick stack of folders, she found one labeled Nguyen Minh Khai, fresh print, recent stamp, but as she picked it up, something fell out. It was a death certificate. Name: Nguyen Minh Khai. Cause of death: car accident. Date of death: September 13, 2023. Place of death: Lien Quang Da Lat Highway. Lin exhaled sharply, her spine icy cold. She couldn't read anymore. Her body felt frozen. In the silence of the records room, only the creaking ceiling fan and flickering neon lights remained. Clutching the file, she ran back up to the internal medicine department. But as the elevator doors opened on the 4th floor, the hallway lights began to flicker wildly. No one was there. All patient room doors were slightly ajar, but the lights inside were off. Lin, trembling, moved toward room 407. The door was cracked open, just slightly, like someone had recently entered. She gently pushed it open. On the bed lay a patient, an elderly woman who had been admitted the day before. Lin sighed in relief and stepped closer to check her blood pressure. When suddenly, the old woman's eyes snapped open wide. Her mouth trembled as she whispered, "The girl, she's back, she's looking for someone." Lin jumped back. The old woman sat up straight and pointed at the wall. On the white wall appeared a dark stain, like blood, slowly dripping down to the floor. Then a girl's voice screamed in Lin's head, "There's no way back for me now." Panicked, Lin bolted out of the room. And when she turned around, she saw the man in the white coat standing at the end of the hallway. It was Dr. Khai. He was smiling, a slow, unblinking smile. Lin ran, gasping for air. As she reached the 2nd floor, her phone rang loudly. Unknown number. She answered. "Is this Ms. Lin?" A man's voice. Breathless. "I'm Tan, from the parking security team. There's something you need to see right away." Lin turned and rushed to the camera control room behind the parking lot. Tan met her with a terrified look, his hand trembling as he pointed at the monitor. "Watch this clip here." The screen replayed footage from the night before, Lin's shift. It showed Dr. Khai walking toward the medication room, then down the hallway. But something was wrong. His footsteps cast no shadow. Each step was visible, yet the lights didn't reflect any shape behind him, as if his body wasn't really there. Lin clenched her fists. She turned to Tan. "Has there been any recent death at the hospital?" Tan lowered his head and pulled out a small stack of records. "There was one case, about a year ago. A doctor named Khai, from your department. He went on leave to Dalat, got into an accident, and passed away." "Hold on." Tan opened a drawer and pulled out a photocopy of a death report. Attached was a photo, the exact face Lin had been seeing every day. She clutched the paper, her whole body going cold. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He's still here, working, every night." That evening, Lin returned to the duty room. She sat still, voice recorder in her pocket, ready. At exactly 1 a.m., a knock echoed through the quiet. Knock, knock, knock. She stood and opened the door. Dr. Khai stood there, still wearing his crisp white coat, face calm and unreadable. He spoke in a soft, wind-like voice. "You weren't supposed to know." "Lin." She stared at him, then gently said, "You're dead, aren't you?" His face shifted slightly. She continued, "And you're still holding on to something you couldn't let go of?" He didn't answer. Instead, he bowed his head and pulled from his coat pocket an old photograph, a picture of him and a young woman, both in nurse uniforms. The girl in the photo looked uncannily like Lin. Khai said softly, "She died during a night shift with me, right in this very room. I couldn't leave her alone, so I stayed behind." Lin was stunned. She could feel it clearly now. He wasn't a vengeful spirit. He was simply a wound, too deep, too cold. She asked gently, "If I help you, will you be able to leave?" For the first time, Khai smiled, with a tender, almost human warmth in his eyes. He nodded. 3 days later, Lin went to the Hung Temple. carrying the photograph and some paper offerings. She burned them, for Kai, and for the girl in the photo. Surrounded by swirls of incense smoke, she closed her eyes and whispered a quiet farewell. That night, during her shift, Lin sat alone. The hospital hallways were silent. No more strange footsteps. No more figures smiling at the end of the corridor. Only the sound of light rain tapping on the window. And a final, peaceful stillness.